activation. So we've collected all the data in the right way. Paul's, got consent and done the implementation bespoke to your business. We've injected all our first-party data. We've leveraged modeling. So now it's to do something with it. We've got to close that automation loop. There's no point doing all of that and then giving it to a human to sit through and sift over and make decisions from. You might as well just close the loop and automate everything. So this is what I'm going to talk to you about now. So using the GA4 as the conduit for the activation. So you might have seen, literally 5 seconds ago, I went through the modeling piece in terms of you can activate model on value and you can model on audience. So in line with that, you activate on value or you activate on audience. So it's about revaluing each conversion on the value side to be more in line with actual value to your specific business than just what you define it as an action from the website, for example. And then being able to segment and personalize, suppress, be more clever with how you target your customers using your first party data. So here are several conversions on the left hand side. So we've got an engaged session, key page view and a form fill. They're all conversion actions. So they are success or failure. There is no value with them normally out of the box. Transaction, yes, there is value to that, which is good and it gives it scale. So what we want to do for conversion actions that don't have a value is put a value against it. We want to go from binary to giving it scale. We want to understand what's bogus form fills versus really hot, blue chip lead, that type of thing. And we want to be able to do that and automate and optimize to it. On the transaction front, revenue is the default out of the box metric that we would the machine would optimize to in Google Ads, for example. But there are other metrics more closely aligned with a business objective, such as profit or lifetime value, that could transform how you approach and optimize toward adding value to your business. So if we do those, if we add value to a conversion action or revalue an existing transaction, then we can create a new GA4 conversion against that. As long as it's a new event, we can put a value against it, and then that is shareable within the Google Ads sphere. So we can do, Dig Alice know all well about value-based bidding, but this is a refined value-based bidding. We want to make sure it's enhanced, more closely aligned with what the business is trying to achieve. So that's the value side. On the audience side, within analytics, we can leverage the power of Google Analytics audiences. So I think Alice touched on it, where you can, and Paul has as well, where you as a user can go in and based on various criteria that on the data that's in analytics, you can select, you can create your own audience from that data. And there's a native integration of these audiences with the ad platforms, and in the form of Google audiences, we can then do things like personalized target, remarket, etc. to these people. The most in its simplest form, I would say, if you're say a retailer, e-commerce or something, then you would want to, I imagine, separate your campaigns in terms of new and existing. That would be the simplest and starting point of trying to be a bit more personalized in how you advertise and be conservative with your budget. Before I'm going to deep dive into some examples around both the value and the audience. Before I do, I just wanted to touch on activating in Google, because we talk about it a lot. And Google's first party data collection. So they collect first party data on all of us. And if you're looking for the gold standard in how to get first party data, I think it's Google. You know, we're trying to get people to log in and have the user ID. Google do it really well. So we as users, we all use this technology. We can't use much of it without logging in. We always have to identify ourselves with Google to use this tech. And then Google have all of that information on us. So they know where we live, where we shop, where we go to work, how long our commute is, hobbies, interests from Chrome, etc., from browsing data. If you've got an Android phone, they know they know a lot about us. And with all of that information, they're able to bucket us into, very distinct audiences, but also target us with ads. So again, this is the network that we're leveraging here with the Google Audience feature. Going back to value, right, I'm going to talk around some hypothetical examples around optimizing to business value. So this is for EDF, for example. EDF, an energy company, on your website, you go to them and you would fill in a form to inquire about using them as a supplier. Both of these form fills, user A and user B, out of the box, they are worth exactly the same. There's nothing differentiated. They were both successful form fills, so the machine will optimize to them equally. If we try to understand a little bit more about what happened in these form fills, so this user A may have skipped some unrequired fields. They might have inquired on electric supply only, and they might have a 1-bedroom apartment. So all that could actually be in the form that is filled in on the website. For user B, they might have an affluent postcode. They might be dual fuel, electric and gas. They might have a 4-bedroom detached house. So again, the value, just understanding a human looking at those two different forms, you would say, oh, absolutely, that right-hand side, user B, is the more valuable type of user that we want to attract. So therefore, we can assign arbitrary score. I've just made them up, but we can put scores against these two users in terms of how much impact they might have on the business. Another example for two users for EDF. So this is a session value. So again, I mentioned before, if you're doing upper funnel stuff, display, YouTube, etc., then this would be relevant. So 2 user paths that visited the site, they were both deemed engaged sessions. Out of the box in GA4, an engaged session is a session that lasts longer than 10 seconds or has more than one interaction. But if we look into user path A, they came from a YouTube ad. They clicked that ad. When they were on the site, they browsed numerous pages and viewed the electric car charging page. They didn't do anything, they left after that. They didn't fill a form in or anything, so we don't know anything about them. User path B was a display ad click and spent 11 seconds on the site. They were both deemed an engaged session, but the user B could well have been an accidental click from an intrusive ad that was not, they didn't go leave the site quick enough in order to not trigger that engagement. So yeah, you can see that user A is absolutely the success metric that EDF would want to be optimizing towards. So again, we can do things where we can, explaining the modeling, where we can put a session value on it. You don't have to do the modeling to do this. You can actually, do a more rudimentary, arbitrary valuation of these types of things without doing that big sophisticated thing I spoke about previously as well. So what do we do when we've got a conversion action that's being valued? as long as we've got events against them, so this is a mock-up of the events list in GA4. I don't know if you can see it. We've got those 2 new events that have a value against them events. As long as those events on the right-hand side have that radio button checked, that they're marked as a conversion, then you can share them conversions with the ad tech and then optimize towards the value of an engaged session or form fill, etc. So revaluing a transaction now, for example. So back to home base, we've got a couple of lawnmowers. One's petrol, one's electric. The petrol one's more expensive, one at the bottom. All other things being equal, apart from the value, you can see there that the petrol is much more valuable than the electric one. But actually, the electric one could be the own brand. They might make an awful lot more money from the electric one than the branded petrol one. So this injecting the profit using one of the methods that Paul talked about previously might change how you as a human, or if you gave it to the machine, how the decisions would be made and which one you would optimize to over the other one. So you can see there that again, if you take profit, and these are again, I've plucked these out of the air for this example, but profit could change how you or the machine optimizes toward value. Again, if you have this refined conversion value as a new event, so I wouldn't change your existing transaction event to have the profit value. Add a new event. You can use server-side GTM to do that, something like this. Add a new event that has transaction profit against it, and then make sure that you're bidding to that in Google Ads or any of the ads products. Activating on audience. I'm going to stick with that home base example and products specific. The easiest example of this, like I said before, would be just doing new and existing, but I wanted to make it a bit more complicated. So we've got a clothes dryer for £35 on the top, and then we've got, I don't know if you can read that, but it's decorator's cork for £1.45. It's just, commodity item, quite expendable. You don't need to go through, look at these all the numbers. I just want to draw your attention to cost and revenue. The dryer, there's not many transactions. There's only 2 transactions, but the revenue that you're making absolutely outweighs how much it costs to acquire. So, and then if you look at on the other hand, the cork, you're not even breaking even. So again, I keep saying, as a human, or you hand the reins to the machine, you're making that decision. Let's push the clothes dryers. Let's not even let's exclude cork from our advertising. If we take the profit into account, like the previous example I just ran through, it might make matters worse. You might make less money because the profit is just showing that you're redlining. It's not even worth it. Again, you wouldn't do it. But if you take items, products out of the thinking and think about people instead, if you think about people, and if you have enough first-party data and you have all this information in the historic data that I talked about, it may well, I'm not saying that this is a thing, but it may well turn out to be different. So the machine could work out that the most probable person to buy a clothes dryer might be a student, younger demographic. They might be on a lower income. Whereas the decorator's cork could be a key low value, low cost driver of DIY enthusiasts. We don't make much money on a individual transaction, but acquiring that customer over, who's into DIY would, I imagine, be quite useful for somebody such as Homebase. So where do these live? This data lives in the CRM or the CDP. This is not naturally sat in GA, or by default it's not in GA. All this data you can get in GA or AdTech. What we need to do is what Paul said. We need to push that first party data from our CRM, our CDP, our data warehouse, whatever it is, into analytics and use it in two ways, really. We can talk about activation, but first of all, you can use it for measurement. So again, the feature in analytics that we've talked about previously and touched on, that is a screenshot in the settings of analytics. You can create audiences, and then you can not only see how many users you're getting of an audience of that given nature, that audience can then, you can go into any report in analytics and just select that audience and see how you acquired that audience. Like, was the kitchen campaign successful, or the cork campaign, was that a successful one? So yeah, that will be reflected in your measurement in the platform. And then secondly, like I said, we can use the power of the Google audiences and share that for, those items that I talked about previously in all the Google Ad Tech. So to summarize that section, it's two things. It's about activating on value and then activating on audience. You can value anything, a user, a session, a form. And yeah, in terms of audience segments, you can map your segments from your CRM that you might have already mapped, and then replicate that in your Google advertising by utilizing this feature.